Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing to you the full story of what happened on that fateful day.
All right, it's September 10th, 2015. This is the SuchBS.com weekly news roundup, where I put together a list of headlines and things that I'm following that are either being misrepresented or underreported in your mainstream corporate news media reporting. So stuff you see on TV or in the newspapers. We're going to take a look at current events and other things that are going on and really dig into them and figure out what is happening. And I got a lot of news stories to cover today. Again, I'm backlogged. I've been tracking this stuff for a long time. But we got some interesting stuff to go through, so I'm going to get into it right away. But first off, as always, you can go to www.suchbs.com and follow all this stuff. I do a lot of what was called open source investigating, so you can actually look at all the sources of information that I get this stuff from, dig into it yourself, look at the primary documents, stuff like that. And that's my contribution to this little community that's being put together there. So please feel free to check it out and contribute. Join the investigation. Help us out. Alright, first up, I've got some, let me see, where do I want to start? I've got some news articles here out of Kansas. We have a story that was posted on the University of Kansas website on August 25th, 2015. And the story was simply titled, Parties Reach a Settlement Agreement and Litigation in Hall versus Kansas University Case. And we'll just read right from the website here. It says, the University of Kansas today announced that a settlement agreement has been reached between the university, the KU School of Business lecturer Arthur Hall, and KU student Schuyler Krause that ends all litigation in the Arthur Hall versus the University of Kansas case. The agreement stipulates that the university and Hall produce to Krause, who is the president of the student group Students for a Sustainable Future, certain designated documents related to the group's Kansas Open Records Act request. Specifically, these documents include correspondence between Hall and other parties identified in the request that discuss the KU Center for Applied Economics use of funds provided by those parties. Additionally, the settlement calls for Hall to produce the funding agreement related to the creation of the Center for Applied Economics. In exchange, Krause agrees to withdraw her Kansas Open Records Act request and release the university and Hall of all claims related to the matter. Now you might be saying, alright, okay, what the hell does all that stuff mean? Well, let's break it down now. This was they used a kind of like a Freedom of Information Act request. This is a Kansas Open Records Act request to the University of Kansas for records between the school, it's one of the lecturers there whose name is Arthur Hall, and one of the students who goes to school there. So she was requesting records from the university and this lecturer and something called the Center for Applied Economics, which is also at the Kansas University. Alright, so what is going on there? Well, this is the perfect one of excellent examples of how big business corrupts academia and also governments, and it involves the Koch Brothers. Alright, so to get the full background, we're going to turn to that multi-million-dollar WordPress blog, The Intercept, in a story that was published August 28, 2015, titled, Emails Show Koch Industries' Backed Effort to Undermine Renewable Energy in Kansas. Now, usually the any article that appears in The Intercept is like thousands of words long, and I have to go through and condense it into like something that you can understand. But this is a pretty short and simple thing here. I'll just read right from the story. We'll skip down a little bit and just take it away. Now, on November 12th, 2013, Art Hall, this guy, who is the director of the university's Center for Applied Economics, emailed Koch Industries' Laura Hands to discuss a grant from a Koch-controlled foundation to fund research on the Renewable Portfolio Standard. Alright, so you got this lecturer from Kansas University who's emailing a lady at a foundation controlled by the Koch Brothers, Koch Industries, to discuss a grant to the university. So, continuing on now. Hall is the former chief economist for Koch Company's public sector, the lobbying subsidiary of Koch Industries, the largest privately owned company in America, with a significant stake in oil refining, pipelines, gas production, and coal. Hands is and this is Laura Hands, is the current community affairs director at Koch Company's public sector. The Koch money was part of an ongoing project Hall described as an effort to develop, quote-unquote, intellectual products to be used, quote-unquote, as a tool in economic policy debates. Hall Center also provides special classes to teach about the virtues of capitalism. Koch-controlled foundations approved $40,000 for work that included the Renewable Energy Standard, as well as at least $250,000 to the center in 2008, and $100,000 to the center in 2009. Alright, so, you gotta set aside the ideological BS that's going on in this article, but basically, you get this giant business who wants to come in and they fund some academic course to develop some intellectual products, whatever that means, that are going to be used as tools in shaping economic policy debates. It sounds like a bunch of jargon. Basically, they're going to do some studies to prove that renewable energy bad and burning fossil fuels good, which, think of that what you may. It is kind of unusual because, hey, you got to follow the money. The people donating the money just happen to be the largest company in America with a stake in oil refining, pipelines, gas production, and coal. So they're probably not too fond of wind power and solar power energy. I would just hazard a guess. So anyways, they're pumping in lots of money. We're looking at about like almost $400,000 in cash to this university, right? What happens next? Well, continuing on here. Following this grant request, Hall testified before the Kansas legislature in 2014 in favor of repealing the state renewable energy portfolio, which calls for major utility companies to use an increasing ratio of renewable energy such as wind and solar. Oh yeah, so there you go. He gets a grant from people who don't like wind and solar, and then he testifies before the legislature to repeal the use of wind and solar. So you kind of see how the corruption works here. Yeah, they corrupt the school, and then the school people go in and lobby the government. Continuing on, skipping down a little bit here, Hall also helped craft unprecedented tax cuts signed into law by Governor Sam Brownback and backed by Koch's local political network. The tax cuts have been viewed roundly as a historic flop, resulting in a downgrade of the state bond rating and drastic education cuts that forced public schools to close early this year. Oh, ain't that a shame? So anyways, it's just another fine example of how lobbying and money corrupt basically everything in the government and academia, and how schools can be manipulated. You don't just go there and get your diploma. They're there to propagandize you, essentially. But there you go. I just found that kind of interesting. It's a pretty clear-cut display of how the old money train works. Well, let's see. I'm not going to go in order. Let's jump around. Let's go to Colorado now. We looked at Kansas. Let's take a look at something, again, speaking of money and government, let's take a look at Colorado, where the state has pulled in $150 million in tax revenues from the legalization and taxation of recreational marijuana. Yes, indeed, the latest numbers coming out of the Christian Science Monitor in an article published September 6, 2015, note that, yes, indeed, to date, they have collected $150 million in tax revenue. Absolutely astounding. But if we skip down to the bottom of the article, something unusual is happening because they are collecting so much tax money. They're currently faced with a problem. And the article reads as follows. Currently, Colorado is facing an unusual problem for a state. Too much tax revenue. Colorado's Taxpayers' Bill of Rights requires the state to issue refunds to taxpayers if revenue exceeds projections, reports the New York Times. Coloradans have... Is that how you say it? Coloradans? Yeah, whatever. People from Colorado will vote in November on whether the state should spend the money or return it to the citizens. Oh yeah, okay. Well, what do you think the people are going to vote for? Anyways, let's get a little more detail on this unusual predicament that the Colorado government is in with collecting too much Mary Jane money. And for that, we'll turn to the New York Times in an article that was published on April 1st, 2015. And it's titled, In Colorado, Marijuana Taxes May Have to Be Passed Back. The article reads as follows. In the state capital, they are calling it refund madness. A year after Colorado became the first state to allow recreational marijuana sales, millions of tax dollars are rolling in, dedicated to funding school construction, marijuana education campaigns, and armies of marijuana inspectors and regulators. But a legal snarl may force the state to hand that money back to marijuana consumers, growers, and the public. And lawmakers do not want to. Of course they don't want to. I mean, they get their hands on money and they just can't let it go, you know?
Must have the precious.
The problem is a strict anti-spending provision in the state constitution that touches every corner of public life, like school funding, state health care, local libraries, and road repairs. Technical tripwires in that voter-approved provision, known as the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, may require Colorado to refund nearly $60 million in marijuana taxes because the state's overall revenue estimates ended up being too low when the marijuana tax question was put to voters. Lawmakers are now scrambling to figure out a way to keep that money, and they are hoping Colorado voters, usually stingy when it comes to taxes and spending, will let them. In rare bipartisan agreement on taxes, legislators are piecing together a bill that would seek voters' permission to hold on to the marijuana money. So yeah, are you noticing how they're saying, oh, it's all that damn marijuana tax money. It's too much. We've made too much. And now, it's all going, of course, to school funding and state health care and local libraries and road repairs and stuff like that. We wouldn't want to give that money back. We might shortchange those things, right? Skipping down, I'll just read one more little section here to ram the point home. Refunding nearly $60 million in marijuana money would shortchange school construction and other needs that had been depending on marijuana taxes and force the state to pay for them from its general fund. Oh no, not the general fund, which is usually always a slush fund in almost every state. They love putting funds in that general fund that can go to just about anything. So yeah, of course they're like, well, we gotta have all this money or else there won't be no more school construction. It'll be a disaster. And then right beneath that it says, it's not that the pot tax came in too high, said State Senator Pat Stedman, a Democrat who has been trying to write a law that would provide a solution. It's that every other revenue came in high. Oh, so there you go. The truth comes out. They try to paint it as pot tax bad. Pot bad and giving back money bad. We need to keep it all. But no. Instead it's, look, the pot tax actually came in underneath under their expectations, but everything else came in high. The article specifically says that while millions are pouring into the state from locals and tourists buying marijuana, oils, and tinctures, candy, and cookies, and raw plants, tax revenue is falling short of the $70 million that the state thought it might collect. So as always, they make these things confusing on purpose, but no, in fact, there's been a big boom, $150 million in a couple years that has been legal. And I'm sure others will follow along. Washington's making good money too. Anyways, I just kind of wanted to point that out, that, you know, they're trying to paint it as, oh no, we gotta give this money back and we're going to have to shortchange the schools and healthcare and road work and all this stuff. Nah, it's BS. It's BS, my friend. Let's see. Should we keep jumping around? Yeah, what the heck. We'll keep jumping around. Alright, I got some election news here. In our election 2016 coverage, which I hate doing. I mean, it's so early in the election cycle, but I saw an interesting story and made me think of something. But anyways, this is a story that appeared on the website Extra, which is like one of them tabloid. I don't want to say it's a tabloidy type thing, but you remember they used to have a TV channel. It's like gossip, celebrity gossip, and all that other bull. This article appeared on August 25th, 2015, and it's titled, "Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are related." Ha ha! Find out their family connection. Yes, indeed. The article reads as follows. Extra can exclusively reveal that political opponents Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are related. MyHeritage.com's genealogy site, Jenny.com, researched Donald and Hillary's families and found out they are actually related through shared English ancestors. Jenny discovered that first Duke and Duchess of Lancaster are their 18th great-grandparents. John of Gaunt, the first Duke of Lancaster, married Catherine Swynford, Duchess of Lancaster, and John and Catherine are Donald and Hillary's shared 18th great-grandparents. This makes the presidential candidates' 19th cousins. Extra caught up with author A.J. Jacobs, who teamed up with MyHeritage.com and studied the research done by Jenny. He explained, quote, "Their 19th great-grandfather is King Edward III, so there is precedent for ruling a country. It's in their genes," unquote, adding that the frenemies can both boast that they have royal blood. Doesn't that just touch your soul? Yes, ruling a country, it's in their genes. Unbelievable. And while that might not, you might be like, alright, who cares? I mean, seriously? That's news? Well, at first it appears to just be some stupid thing that some people looked at. But it reminds me of another story. Because you see, back in 2010, this little girl put together a project where she built a family tree that connected every single U.S. president, except for one, to a certain King of England.
It's a great thing for history.
George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, William Howard Taft, and President Barack Obama. One young girl traced them all back to one common ancestor.
They're all cousins and all grandsons of John Lackland.
It's the first family tree of its kind. Pouring through more than 500,000 names for months, 12-year-old Bridge Ann d'Avignon discovered that all the U.S. presidents, except Martin Van Buren, are related to the former King of England, John Lackland Plantagenet, signer of the Magna Carta in 1215.
Mildred Reed is his first great-grandmother on George Washington. And on Obama, Mildred Reed is the 10th great-grandmother.
It started as an assignment to research her own lineage, tracing it back to roots in France. But Bridge Ann wanted to branch out.
Well, I think we just all go back somewhere. It's just a matter of proving it.
She started with George Washington, but unlike other professional genealogists that only looked at the male family lines, Bridge Ann was able to link the presidents together using both male and female ancestry. Before this, historians had only been able to link 22 family trees.
Well, that's just a big coincidence, I'm sure. Yeah, it's got to be a coincidence. So, wait a second, you're telling me that every single president of the United States, except for one, on one occasion, has been related? Well, now I'm sure you're just saying that, well, everybody's related to everybody else in the long run if you go back far enough, right? Well, sure. I'm not trying to imply anything here. I think it's interesting. And hey, we got 2 more candidates with royal connections. Yeah, maybe we should be looking at them to get into office. It might seem like a sure bet, right? Whoever's got the royal blood, that's who you should be voting for. There's certainly a lot of precedent, wouldn't you say? Anyways, speaking of Hillary Clinton, I want to give you some email gate updates. Remember, the email that can land you in jail. And I do have another part to that episode coming out soon. I just got to put it together. I've got all the information. Mostly all the information I want to put in that, so I'm going to get it out. But I found a couple interesting things. Of course, on the, I believe it's the end of every month, or the beginning of each month. I don't know which one it is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's the end of every month. The State Department continues to release Hillary Clinton's emails, so we had a new batch come out, and here's the priceless BS that's caught in these. Of course, the mainstream media always jumps on this stuff. Like, for instance, an email where Hillary Clinton said, "Just send me the classified info, damn it," and other stupid things like that. So let's play this clip. Maybe you'll get a laugh out of it.
The State Department has released a giant collection of emails from Hillary Clinton's private server. 7,000 pages worth confidential material has found about 150 of the emails. None of the emails were top secret. There is a redacted email forwarded from Ambassador Richard Holbrooke after a trip from Kabul for Jake Sullivan and the secretary, and, quote, "Please no one else." In another email, Sullivan emails about visas for a trip to Burma, noting the email is unclassified. Apparently, other officials disagreed, marking classified literally right next to it, and heavily redacting the rest. In an exchange with George Mitchell about meetings with Mahmoud Abbas and others, Clinton asks him to use her personal email address. Sections that the State Department later determined were classified were redacted. In another email, Clinton seems annoyed. She writes, "It's a public statement. Just email it." Jake Sullivan replies, "Trust me, I share your exasperation, but until operations converts it to the unclassified email system, there is no physical way for me to email it. I can't even access it."
That's pretty extraordinary. Let's just stop right there for a second. First of all, Mike, everything she said in that UN press conference about this is just patently false. And here you actually have her berating somebody that worked for her.
And works for her still today.
And works for her still, berating him, saying, "Send me this classified email." And he said, "It's basically, I can't. It's classified. I can't even access it because it's classified."
So yeah, it's the attention-grabbing headlines that they need for the 24-hour non-stop news cycle where everything just rolls over and you forget about stuff after a couple days. That's the type of stuff that draws eyeballs. At least the focus groups say that. But if you're more interested in the meat and potatoes of what's going on, I found an interesting article on a website called The Federalist, which is, I'm pretty sure, some kind of right-wing website. But the article is... it's got some good information. They have a lot of examples to back this up. And totally shreds apart all the spin that's going on with these emails and whether they were classified at the time that she got them or sent them or, whatever. So let's take a look at this article. Again, this appeared on the Federalist website on September 1st, 2015. It's titled, "Breaking! Hillary intentionally originated and distributed highly classified information." The article starts like this. "A review of recently released emails shows that former Secretary of State Clinton repeatedly originated and distributed highly classified national security information. Clinton's classified email missives were not constrained to State Department staff either. She also sent classified information to Sidney Blumenthal, a former Clinton White House operative banned by the Obama White House. Yeah. Skipping down here, let's get to the meat and potatoes. They're going to talk about, it's going to get a little technical, and I suggest you go look at this website if you want to know more, because they actually have pictures of the emails up there, so you can look and see exactly what they're talking about. Now, the website, the article continues as follows. The original date of classification of Hillary's emails can be discerned by noting the declassification dates noted next to redactions in the emails. Under a 2009 executive order signed by President Barack Obama, classified material in most circumstances is to be automatically declassified after 10 years. In some instances, that duration may be extended up to 25 years. In certain circumstances, classification authorities may adjust the classification duration based on the nature of the underlying information. Hang with me here. In this July 2010 email, for example, the entirety of Hillary Clinton's message was redacted prior to its public release under the federal FOIA law. The redactions of the material were provided pursuant to a provision of law protecting national security information. The printed redaction code, which is 1.4D, which is cited next to the redaction and at the top of the document next to the official classification date, pertains to information on, quote, foreign relations or foreign activities of the United States, including confidential sources, unquote. At the top of the document, a declassification date of July 1st, 2025 is clearly noted. That declassification date is highly significant because it is precisely 15 years after the date on which the email was sent, rather than the date on which it was marked. This is because under federal law, information is classified by nature, not by marking. As a result, federal classification authorities deem that the information was classified the very second it originated, even if it was not marked as such until August 27th, 2015. Also worthy of note is the fact that Hillary's message is the only content in the entire document that is redacted and marked as classified. This means that she was not merely a helpless passive recipient of classified national security information, she was the originator. And if you had trouble following that, anytime they do a redaction on this stuff, they give a reason for doing that, which, as he said, was a 1.4D. It's law. It's complicated. But anyways, what they're looking at is the date on which this material will become declassified, and they're noting that it's classified on 8/27/2015, which is when all the material was released out into the public. That's when they classified it, but they won't declassify it until 2025, but not on August 27th when it was released into the public, but actually on July 1st when the email was originally created. That means that data was classified at the time it was created, not when they released it out into the public. Anyways, this article goes on and on and on. They have more and more examples. I really suggest you check it out, but this is pretty concise and right to the point, and is a clear indicator that the stuff in her emails was classified at the time they were created, and that it's not some big battle between two agencies like they're trying to spin it as now. And finally, on the Emailgate updates, there was an article that appeared in the gossip column Radar Online on September 3rd, 2015, which caught a little bit of buzz, noting that some hacker on the internet had all of Hillary Clinton's emails for sale for the price of $500,000. And they explained that, oh, she may have wiped her server or whatever, but she forgot to delete all the messages in her sent box. So now, I've got them all. Ha-ha! Anyways, let's take a look at this article here real quickly. The article's titled, Exposed! Libya security briefs, Algeria hostage info, and more. Hacker threatens to sell Hillary Clinton's entire unreleased private emails for $500K. And the article starts off as follows. Just as Emailgate looked to be winding down, Radar Online has exclusively learned a person claiming to be a computer specialist has come forward with the stunning news that 32,000 emails from Hillary Clinton's private email account are up for sale. The price tag? A whopping $500,000. Promising to give the trove of the former Secretary of State's emails to the highest bidder, the specialist is showing subject lines as proof of what appears to be legitimate messages. Right. Oh, he's got proof. He's got the goods. It's stunning exposure. Hillary Clinton is being threatened. Well, is she really? I took a look, actually. If you look down, they have some samples of the email headlines. They read like subject matter. H. Libya security latest from Sid with attachment. Or H. FYI, the best analysis so far of hearing Sid. Or other ones like H. Algeria latest French intel on Algeria hostage crisis. Sid. H. Highly important comprehensive intel report with attachment. Anyways, since I've been doing the email that can land you in jail series, I've been trawling through the Guccifer hack, or the Guccifer hack, whatever you want to call it. And I thought these sounded familiar, so I looked, and there's actually, these pretty much come from a screenshot that was released in the Guccifer hack. So I kind of highly doubt this guy has all these, or this person, we don't know if it's man or woman, but I doubt this person has all 32,000 of her emails. This is just, nobody's checking this out. But yeah, I think, I'm pretty sure if he does have them all, he's using the titles of emails that have already been released. So I think it's just hype or, a clickbait type article to get you to read. So I'll link to a picture of that right from the Guccifer hack, and you can compare the headlines to what we already have seen, and you tell me what you think. So all right, we're about halfway here. Where do I want to go from here? I got so many stories. Let's do some terrorism news. I got a few interesting stories you might like. The first one is from the Terror Factory, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I would encourage you to go back to the first weekly news roundup I did on, what was it? Oh, the Garland terrorist shooting, ISIS connection. That story that we did last week. And I mentioned something called the Terror Factory, where the FBI has this relationship where they like to create terrorists, essentially. Anyways, I ran across an interesting press release from the FBI. It was dated August 28th, 2015, and let me just read a little bit of this to you. This press release is titled, Men Sentenced for Conspiracy to Use Weapons of Mass Destruction. Oh my, yes indeed. It reads as follows. Brian Cannon, age 37, Terry Peace, age 47, and Corey Williamson, age 29, have been sentenced for conspiring to use weapons of mass destruction in attacks against federal government agencies. Dear God. The defendants plan to attack critical infrastructure while motivating militia groups in other states to rise up and join them in removing government officials who they believed had exceeded their constitutional power. In this case, anti-government ideology and rhetoric morphed into dangerous extremism and led these defendants to arm themselves and travel to a meeting to pick up pipe bombs and other explosives intended for attacks, said U.S. Attorney John Horn of the Northern District of Georgia. These attacks planned by the defendants, while rare, posed a serious threat to not only the safety of our public servants, but also all other members of the community. Oh, here's a gem right here. This case illustrates the FBI's commitment in preventing terrorist attacks instead of responding to their aftermath, said Special Agent in Charge J. Britt Johnson for the FBI's Atlanta field office. That's really a gem. You can't beat that. The convictions and now federal sentencing of these individuals on conspiracy charges again represents that the juries and courts understand this shift in the law enforcement mindset in dealing with individuals or groups that wish to bring harm to the public or those who serve the public. Alright, yay, so we got some guys, some crazy right-wing militia guys who were planning to use weapons of mass destruction, which appear at first glance to be pipe bombs. I didn't know those were weapons of mass destruction. I thought they had to be like nukes or something, but hey, pipe bombs, close enough. They were going to use pipe bombs to attack the government, and good thing the FBI prevented the attacks instead of responding to the aftermath. Well, if you know anything about the Terror Factory, then we're going to dig into exactly how they prevented these terrorist attacks. So first off, I actually went on and pulled up this case on the government website, and it does cost money. This stuff is not cheap to look at all these court documents, and of course they charge you like 10 cents a page, but it's legal stuff, so everything's like 290 pages of exhibits. You pull that up, you already owe them $30. So I'm in the hole a lot on this story, but I have the criminal complaint and an affidavit signed by the FBI Special Agent Adam Rowland. So let's take a look at some of the highlights that came from this. And first off, of course, you can probably guess, but the idea for getting the explosives and actually furnishing the explosives came from the FBI. Alright, so first off, let me just read. This is like the court case here, so you can look it up yourself, is 4:14-CR-00011-HLM-WEJ. So there you go. You can go and look this stuff up yourself. I'll include a copy in the show notes, but the affidavit reads as follows. Now, this is from the FBI Special Agent. He's giving an overview of the case against these men. He says, on February 6, 2014, during an online chat between CHS-1, and that stands for Confidential Human Source Number 1, that's an FBI informant, and Mr. Williamson made reference to items he needed for this mission. When CHS-1 and Williamson discussed whether the group needed ammunition and explosives, Williamson advised that Williamson was not certain, but that he believed it was all covered. Williamson then stated that he would ask unless CHS-1 had resources to share. CHS-1 advised that CHS-1 was not certain, but CHS-1 would ask his contact. So, yeah, the FBI informant, they're doing an online chat. He says, hey, man, you guys need ammunition and explosives? And the defendant, Mr. Williamson, says, oh, I don't know. I think we got it covered, but let me check. And then, so sure enough, CHS-1, the informant, the FBI guy's like, yeah, well, let me see if I can get you some explosives. Not a big problem. Skipping down, we'll look at section number 15. It says, on February 8th, 2014, during a recorded telephone call, CHS-1 advised the defendant, Mr. I think it was Terry Peace. It just says Peace in here. They go by the last names. He advised Terry Peace that CHS-1 had a contact that could provide the group with what it needed. CHS-1 further advised Peace that its contact wanted to know what the group needed the device to do so the contact would know what to make. Peace responded that he needed a, quote, a thermite charge to go through the engine block of an MRAP, unquote. Peace stated that most sheriffs and police departments have one or two. And funny enough to note, in the very next section, the FBI informant says, I had to go on the internet and look up what an MRAP was, and I found out that it was a mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicle, which I find kind of funny that he didn't know what an MRAP was, but anyways, yeah, it's like an armored fighting vehicle. Skipping down to section number 17, additionally, during the February 8th, 2014 recorded call, after CHS-1 advised Mr. Peace that CHS-1 was writing down what Peace requested, Peace stated, quote, "If he can hook us up with, say, like 12 pipe bombs, that'll be sweet," unquote. Peace additionally added that he wanted the pipe bombs constructed for maximum fragmentation. Alright, so this guy, the FBI informant, is going to get him some pipe bombs, no problem, and hey, some thermite charges. That'll work, that'll be great. So once again, you see the FBI supplying these men, and perhaps even putting the first thoughts in their heads like, hey, I can hook you guys up with some explosives. Do you need explosives? Oh yeah, you need explosives? Oh yeah, I got a guy. I know a guy. His name is the FBI. He'll get you some thermite charges. Yeah, no problem. Alright, so what else we got? There is another section here where they get into an encrypted online conversation with somebody who uses an internet handle called Chief. So I guess we can assume that he's the head of the operation. Anyways, let me read this real quick because it's kind of interesting, right? The affidavit reads as follows. On February 5th, 2014, Peace requested information to access the secured chat site, which occurred on that day. FBI agents were present when CHS-1 they're present with CHS-1 and observed CHS-1 chat using the website chatcrypt.com. FBI agents observed that there were only 3 participants to this chat. The FBI informant, a person using the moniker Chief, and 1 other person. These chats were preserved as evidence. During this monitored conversation, Chief wrote, quote, "We will be using guerrilla-style warfare tactics. I have been arguing with myself on what level of violence or what level of damage is acceptable. I do not want to kill or injure fellow Americans, so at least for the guys with me, we will restrain the violence towards people and target infrastructure. Then respond to violence with reciprocal violence," unquote. Chief further stated, quote, "The group with me will move first mainly to make a point. I stand by what I say. The other group should start within the next 24 to 48 hours in order to keep the operational tempo up so that when one unit is done, another is hitting non-stop. As soon as we complete mission 1, we will relocate and then start mission 2, then 3, until all is done," unquote. Alright, so you might be like, okay, well, what does that mean? Anyways, I just found it very interesting because this guy with the online handle Chief, right, he uses a bunch of military jargon, right? He talks about things like operational tempo and other stuff like that. It's really not something that your everyday type of person is going to say. I mean, just go on to Google or some search engine and type in operational tempo, and you will get a handful of, like .mil websites. I mean, this is military stuff. So either this guy's done a lot of reading of military books, or more likely he was in the military, and we'll have some more to say on that in just a minute. But there's another kind of unusual section where a second informant tells the FBI exactly what their brilliant plan is, and it's also worth a look. From the affidavit, section 20, it reads, "A second FBI confidential human source, known as CHS-2, reported to FBI that on February 8th, 2014, CHS-2 and defendant Cannon had a conversation in which Cannon stated that, quote-unquote, the group was planning to, quote-unquote, start the fight with the government by strategically planning to sabotage power grids, transfer stations, and water treatment facilities. Cannon claimed this action would cause mass hysteria, and if enough sabotage was successful, then martial law would be declared, therefore triggering other militias to join the fight. Cannon claimed too many militias were in a defensive mode, and in order to get them out of the defensive posture, actions would have to take place to force martial law to be declared." Now, alright, that sounds pretty crazy, right? But, I guess something like that could go down, I'm sure. Even if you think about it, just imagine if the FBI gave these nuts the wrong bomb or something like that, or one that actually worked. It'd be devastating. And think about what they're trying to do. They're trying to get martial law declared. That's crazy. Now, you might also be surprised to hear that in the footnote of this affidavit, for this whole section, we learn that this particular conversation where their whole plan is laid out about how they want to sabotage, infrastructure to trigger martial law, well, this whole conversation, where the guy, Mr. Cannon, spilled his guts and laid out his whole big plan, it was not recorded by the FBI. So really, it could have never happened. I mean, it could just be being made up by the informant. We have no idea because they didn't record it. But hey, let's throw it in there. We'll piece this thing together, right? Alright, so finally, one more thing I just want to look at here. Let's take a look at the affidavit. We'll read section number 23, which notes that on February 13th, 2014, Peace, Cannon, Williamson, and an unknown subject traveled to a store named Country Sportsman located in Rome, Georgia. All four of them entered the store. Cannon looked at a .308 caliber Mossberg rifle. Cannon commented that he was interested in this particular rifle because it has a threaded barrel which would allow him to attach a silencer. Cannon completed an ATF form 4473 but changed his mind about the purchase. Peace then presented his gun permit and purchased the Mossberg rifle. Peace also purchased a Vortex rifle scope, a hard gun case, a bipod, and rings used to attach the scope. Cannon asked the store clerk for a certain kind of ammunition. After the store clerk advised that the store didn't carry the requested ammunition, Cannon advised that he already had ammunition. Okay, so anyways, the reason that caught my eye is it's kind of unusual because the FBI has all these details on these conversation and this conversation and the events that were taking place inside the store. They know that one guy filled out a gun for him, but then he changed his mind. They know that one of the subjects liked a certain type of gun because he could attach a silencer. They know that Mr. Cannon said he already had a certain type of ammunition. But you know what? It's not exactly clear how they came by these details. There's really nothing in this affidavit that says that. I mean, was the store wired up for surveillance? If so, how did they know the guys were going to go there? Did they interrogate the store clerk after the men left? And is this just like a paraphrasing of what happened? Or maybe was this quote-unquote unknown subject, the fourth person who went with them to this gun store, perhaps also an FBI informant? Anyways, it just seems kind of weird to me, like how they got that, all that information from inside the gun store. But anyways, they go to pick up the pipe bombs, and from the FBI, let me do it again. But anyways, they go to pick up the pipe bombs from the FBI, and boom, they get nicked. Another successful case in the Terror Factory. And once again, I'll throw a link into the TED Talk by Trevor Aronson, where he kind of outlines his case for the FBI manufacturing of terrorism. And just on one final note, in my digging through this case, I'll throw in a link to some other interesting stuff, including a motion to seal the military records and psychological tests of, Terry Peace, who was the chief defendant, which is kind of interesting if you think back to the quote-unquote guy chief who was using all that military jargon like operational tempo. I wonder why they're sealing his military records and stuff like that. Don't know. We'll probably never know. Those guys are going to the slammer. Oh man, I got like 10 minutes. Alright, let's see what we can throw in here. A couple little notes. The FBI, speaking of the FBI, I guess. And if you were happening to attend Burning Man this year, well, we had a release of some documents. Now, they're not new. These are FOIA documents and Freedom of Information Act documents, which were released by the FBI regarding Burning Man in 2010. You know, the big event that goes on out there in the desert, where everybody goes there and they go crazy and they take off all their clothes and it's real artsy and awesome, man. Anyways, back in 2010, the FBI worked with the Pershing County Sheriff's Department to, quote, aid in prevention of terrorist activities and intelligence collection at Burning Man. So yes, indeed, the FBI is snooping around Burning Man to make sure no terrorists attack the giant burning statue guy, I guess. Stick man. Don't burn him. And by the way, intelligence collection, probably reasonable to assume that they're building a file on you while you're out there if you go. I guess COINTELPRO is really alive and well. And this follows a whole string of stuff. I mean, again, this was back in 2010 when the documents are from, but it's probably pretty safe to assume that it's continued on as this event gets bigger and bigger each year. And we know the feds have been cracking down on Burning Man quite a bit. It's getting so big that this year they actually tried to extort Burning Man. BLM and some of these government agencies actually tried to extort them. It was kind of funny. I'll go over it if you missed it earlier in the year. This article appeared in the Reno Gazette-Journal on August 10th, 2015. This was when Burning Man was having a long battle with the federal government to get a permit for their campgrounds out there in the desert. This article is titled, BLM Scraps Burning Man VIP Compound and Grants Permit. It reads as follows. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Management has scrapped demands for a VIP compound at this year's Burning Man, the agency announced Friday evening. Wonderful. In June, the BLM requested that Burning Man pocket the expense to build a, quote, blue pit compound, unquote, on the event site. A living quarters area that would accommodate BLM law enforcement and officials from Washington, D.C., some of whom would only be visiting for a day or so. The BLM also would have an on-site headquarters, which, paired with the compound, would cost Burning Man more than $1 million. Quote, we took a very hard look at what is essential to maintain core operational needs to provide appropriate health, safety, and environmental safeguards on the playa, unquote, Stephen Clutter, spokesman for the Nevada BLM office, said Friday evening. Alright, so they want some kind of special compound for them to have for the top BLM officials and whoever visiting people from Washington, D.C. are. I mean, where some senators and stuff flying out here? What the hell's going on? They wanted Burning Man to build this giant VIP section for him. It would cost them $1 million, but don't worry, it's only the essential core operational needs that we need to provide safety and security and stuff while we're at Burning Man. What did this compound consist of? Well, let's continue reading for all the details. The compound was to be complete with flushing toilets, washers, dryers, showers. It's interesting to note that none of which would be made available to the other 150 BLM staff working the event or anyone else on site, according to documents obtained in June by the Reno Gazette-Journal. BLM staff also asked to have mandatory 24-hour access to ice cream. Choco tacos included, the document said. So yeah, of course, I mean, any government employees have to have mandatory 24-hour access to Choco tacos. But it's just so that they can provide appropriate health, safety, and environmental safeguards. So don't forget that. It's just funny because, this event, it was kind of this ragtag type of thing, this counterculture type of thing, but now it's growing so big, it's such a big moneymaker that the feds are extorting them. And that's just the way it goes. When you get big, you got to get involved in the government, and there's money to go around. People are going to shake you down. It's just the way it works. Finally, one last thing I want to throw in, just an update on the Garland shooting. You may have missed this, but an ISIS militant, who was supposedly linked to the Garland shooters, has been killed in a drone strike. Alright, this article appeared in the Washington Post on September 1st, 2015. It's titled, U.S. Launches Secret Drone Campaign to Hunt Islamic State Leaders in Syria. And it's kind of a long, convoluted article about all the new secret drone program they have to track down those dastardly terrorists, ISIS, out in the Syrian deserts. Here's just a brief paragraph right from the front to give you an idea of what this is talking about. It says, the CIA and U.S. Special Operations Forces have launched a secret campaign to hunt terrorism suspects in Syria as part of a targeted killing program that is run separately from the broader U.S. military offensive against the Islamic State, U.S. officials have said. Anyways, they're going to be tracking high-value targets. It goes on and on about how they're bringing in the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, the CTC, and they're sending out drones with Special Operations and Military JSOC Command. And they're going to be looking for these high-value targets. Now, one of them that they specifically note, quote, these people are being identified and targeted through a separate effort, unquote, said a senior U.S. official familiar with the operation, referring to the British militant Junaid Hussain and others killed in recent weeks. So, who was Junaid Hussain? Well, let's get down and get the dirt on this guy. It says, Hussain, the 21-year-old British militant killed last month, was moved towards the top of the target list after being linked to one of 2 gunmen killed in Garland, Texas this year after opening fire at a cartoon contest that invited participants to draw pictures of the Prophet Muhammad. So yes, this guy, Junaid Hussain, a 21-year-old British militant who was working with ISIS, after he was linked to one of the 2 gunmen who were killed in the Garland, Texas terrorist attack. Well, he got bumped up to the top of the kill list, I guess you could call it. I feel so dirty saying that, but yes, he was moved up to the top of the kill list. And you might be wondering, how is this guy related to the Garland shooting? This British guy? Well, an article that appeared in the New York Times covers how these incidents are related. It was published May 11th, 2015. It's titled, Clues on Twitter Show Ties Between Texas Gunmen and ISIS Network. Of course, this was the big thing. This is ISIS's first attack on America. And this was plugged and pushed in all the media. The article reads as follows. Hours before he drove into a Texas parking lot last week and opened fire with an assault rifle outside a Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest, Elton Simpson, 30, logged onto Twitter. He said, quote, follow @_Abu Hussein. Mr. Simpson posted, promoting a Twitter account believed to belong to Junaid Hussain, a young computer expert from Birmingham, England, who moved to Syria 2 years ago to join the Islamic State and has become one of the extremist group's celebrity hackers. Yep. So, anyways, this guy, he tweeted to this guy, I guess, this British-based, all I can think of is Smash Units. The Smash Unit. This member of the Smash Unit. Now, this ISIS celebrity hacker who moved to Syria, he was in contact with one of the gunmen in the Garland shooting. So, anyways, that ought to tie up another loose end in the Garland, Texas shooting, where, again, we still have no details after all these months and months and months. The FBI, the government, is not releasing any details on what in the world happened at Garland, Texas. And if you want some more details on what may have happened there, go back and listen to the first weekly news roundup where we touched on how paths cross between these shooters and Operation Fast and Furious, where it's quite possible that the government may have given this terrorist a gun that he used in the terrorist attack. Again, no details forthcoming. When are they going to come? When are we going to know what happened there? And all the background. We'll keep asking, but the answers might not be coming. But look at that, we're out of time. I'm out of time. I didn't even get to half the stories I had, so stick around next time. I've got stories on Windows 10, spying on you. What else? Oh yeah, a couple weird stories. Blue boars. Oh, the whole shooting hoax that happened in Millis. We got some Vatican news. More. I still haven't gotten the news on the stingrays. There's a big settlement in the Tectopus wage fixing conspiracy I want to go over. Oh man, I got some great information on the migrant crisis. I'm just finishing putting that together. We'll cover that next week. I hope I will really try to get that done. Got some updates on Syria, more election 2016 info, including a huge vote rigging case out in Kansas that's brewing. Got some caliphate updates, mass surveillance, propaganda, a lot of stuff to cover. Tune in next week. We'll dive into more of the headlines and peel it back, show you what's behind it, stuff they're not talking about. And as always, you can go on to www.suchbs.com, join the open source investigation. You can also go on there and rant and rave, do whatever. Just trying to build a community here. We're going to cut through the BS, my friends. Have a safe week.